We'll do it live, friends. Welcome to a brand new day, a brand new season, a brand new show. I am touched, I am honored, I am flattered, I am thrilled when the phone rang to be here. My name is Andrew Siciliano, and this is Inside Coverage. And you are watching live right now on Yahoo Sports, the YouTube page, and on the website. A show that's going to be here every single night, 6:30 Eastern time throughout the NFL season, throughout the preseason. We're heading into week 2 of the preseason, and I'm your humble host. But it's not just about me. It's about all the great Yahoo NFL coverage that you've been seeing and hearing and reading and expecting for so long. Coverage from great writers and great journalists that have been here long before I graced the screen, long before I got invited into talking to these great people, these great journalists who know the NFL up and down. That's why it's the how and why. That's why it is the inside coverage. I am just the longtime listener and the first-time caller, and thrilled to be with Frank Schwab and Jory Epstein. Guys, thank you for having me. I'm a little bit rusty from hosting shows. Please be gentle. It is good to be here.
Andrew, it is great to have you here. I mean, we've been friends for a long time. I have watched your work for a long time, and I feel like I'm always just texting you, hey, nice job with this interview with Shedeur via the Browns, or nice job on this project. And now it's fun to be able to say, like, hey, let's just do this together.
Instead of texting, let's actually do a show, Frank.
Andrew, you were so close to the Brent Musburger. You are looking live, and we're old enough to get that reference, right? And that's the fun part to me, not just being on with you, Andrew, but it's live now. Like, we should post as the better among the group here. I should be posting odds on who's going to be the first to swear. I know Charles would probably be like minus 200 in that, but I'm a dark horse. So, yeah, live podcasting. It's going to be so fun.
Are we allowed
I can't
to?
wait. It just adds.
What are the rules?
There are no rules, I guess. I don't know. I never got handed any, so I guess we could break them all.
It's not an issue of concern for me, so.
Yeah, it's not an issue. We're not going to work blue. You mentioned Charles Robinson, who will be on Tuesday's show. No need to work blue, but there is an openness to say exactly what it is we think and how we feel and what we've learned as we bounce around from camp to camp and team to team and game to game. There's a full weekend of preseason games to give you at home or watching on your phone or wherever it is you're consuming this podcast or this live program, everything that we know. I was at a game on Friday Night Lights. I'm told that roughly 2.5 million people watched the Shedeur Sanders preseason NFL debut, a game in which Shedeur looked pretty good. The Browns scored 30 unanswered, and they beat the Carolina Panthers 30-10 in Charlotte. Guys, before the game, about 2 hours before kick, and again, 7 o'clock on an ugly, ugly day in Charlotte, rain in the morning, just an ugly week of weather there. On the secondary market, there were still tickets going, and some of this was price gouging just to see if they could get it. There were still tickets going for $350 in the lower deck. That is the Shedeur Sanders factor. I think that number was ridiculous, but if you were in the building or watching on TV, you saw Shedeur play a really good game. Now, he started against the Carolina Ones. Dave Canales had his starting defense out there for a couple of series, and Sanders started slowly. But then he kicked it into gear. He played 45 snaps, and he threw 2 touchdown passes. He looked the part. Did he look so good that he's going to start week 1? No. Joe Flacco, I think, is going to start week 1 because the Browns' schedule the first 6 weeks is just ridiculous. There's no way you're going to throw a rookie out there, whether it's Sanders or Dylan Gabriel. It's just not going to happen. But he changed the narrative. He planted a flag. He showed that, yeah, he can really play in this league. And despite getting not a lot of reps the first couple of weeks at camp, he showed that he has the ability as a gamer to rise to the occasion. Frank, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what to expect, but I think everybody walked away from it going, okay, I'm impressed. I see you.
Absolutely. And the number that popped out to me, honestly, is at 2.5 million. Like the Shedeur Sanders experience is unlike anything I've seen since Tim Tebow. And I don't say that lightly. This is a guy who is so divisive and polarizing, but his critics didn't have much to say on Friday night because he looked as good as you could reasonably expect. We talked about it last week. this was not an easy situation for him. He had taken 0 snaps with the starters in camp before reports came out from Mary Kay Cabot that he was going to start this game because of injuries around him. He started a little slow, but not bad. It was just very safe, very, conservative passes. And you could see him get more confidence as the game went on, get warmed up as the game went on. He was throwing downfield. He looked good. His 2 touchdown throws were excellent in different ways. The first one, he kind of had great touch. Saw a guy in the back of the end zone, floated it really nicely. Second one, functional movement in the pocket, strong throw to the middle of the field in the end zone. I was just, you could be more impressed with Shedeur Sanders. Now, look, this wasn't, you're right. It wasn't like, oh my goodness, he has to start week 1. Like, no, let's calm down a little bit about this. But I think given the circumstances, you could not have asked for any more from Shedeur Sanders. I was very impressed. It's very promising. And as me and you, Jory, we've talked about this. The big competition here is between him and Dylan Gabriel. Who starts the season higher on the depth chart? Because once the Browns do make that quarterback change, who is next up? Maybe Kenny Pickett, but who among the rookies is the first up? I think Shedeur Sanders made a pretty good argument that he should be that guy.
Yeah, he should. And I think it's only 1 game, and we still don't know yet, to be honest with you. We're trying to get Jory back online. Internet happens, folks. Sometimes it slows down. Frank,
by the way, Andrew, you were there. You were there. Was it
yeah.
different than any other preseason game? Like it just seemed from watching on TV like there was electricity you don't see in the preseason that often.
No, there were so many Browns fans there. Number one, Browns fans always travel well. The Browns Backers organization, one of the the biggest NFL fan clubs worldwide, not just domestically. So there are lots of Browns fans there. Frank, what really stood out to me is, and let's forget about, actually, we can't forget about it. Obviously, the hype was there with the way he entered the building, with cornerback Tony Brown by his side with a massive speaker on wheels blasting one of Shedeur's unreleased tracks. That got a lot of pub and a lot of cameras. And there was a national network that described Tony Brown, a 6-year veteran of the NFL, a former track champion in high school, coming out of Texas as a member of his entourage, not just like a core special teams player who played 32 defensive snaps that night. But when you saw all that hype, I think there were some people that went like, oh boy, here we go. But then he got out there and he looked the part. Like, for example, the second touchdown, both to Caden Davis, by the way. The second touchdown, they're in the red zone. There's a free hitter coming over right guard. Amani Marshall, undrafted rookie free agent running back. And Frank, you know this. I mean, any coach will tell you the question about a rookie running back is, can I trust him in coverage? Right? Or can I trust him in protection, rather? Amani Marshall slides over. He picks off the blitzer. And Shedeur doesn't just run. He doesn't exit the pocket and scramble. He just slides a little bit to the right. He let his back do the job. And then he threw a perfect pass to Davis, low and inside where only he can get it. There was never an issue of accuracy. Shedeur Sanders is, statistically, the most accurate quarterback in the history of FBS, Division I college football. We knew he could be accurate, but the naysayers said, oh, well, it's all screen game. It's just all short stuff, right? It's all jump balls to Travis Hunter. No, it isn't. The guy is great with ball placement, and he was calm. Like, if you look at, Frank, the 12-minute clip that the Browns posted this morning on their team site, Shedeur was mic'd up. The guy was practically flatlined. Even after the touchdowns, he was certainly happy and celebrating with his teammates. But Jory, the demeanor and the been there, done that calmness, and I think even the modesty on the sideline when he was interviewed in game on the local News 5 broadcast with our friend Aditi Kinkabwala, where he didn't want to say, yeah, I did it, look at me. He gave himself, Jory, a C grade when Aditi asked him for a grade, and all he did was point out the things he did wrong.
Yeah, I love you mentioned the C grade, because I know we'll get to the Giants and Jaxson Dart, who called his performance mid when asked by Brian Daboll. So some say C, some say mid, some say average. We have to keep up with all of the terms. But I think for me, did we really ever have questions whether Shedeur Sanders was a gamer and whether he had the instincts and whether he can play backyard football? I think the question when I was there during minicamp was much more, hey, how can he operate the offense? Can he operate it cleanly? Can he make decisions at the line of scrimmage? Can he get all the moving parts rather than just rely on his own playmaking? And I think that's what the Browns were looking to see this weekend. And then when I asked someone who was watching from another team, I said, what do you think? And the person told me, he looked like a second-round rookie. And I was like, well, what grade did your team have on Shedeur? And they said third round, which I think that to me was all along. To me, a lot of this conversation was, hey, people wanted to put him in the first round when maybe he didn't belong there talent-wise. And I'm not saying his career won't belong there. I'm saying based off what he'd already done and what they'd already seen. And then you say, okay, well, he fell from second or third based off what a lot of the league thought all the way down to fifth. Part of that could be because of the circus that comes around him, for lack of a better word. And I'm not even saying that's Shedeur's personality because, Andrew, you've spent plenty of time around him, and the little I've spent, I really don't think he gives off circus vibes, but that there's a lot going on with that family, and I think that's reasonable to say that they like the limelight and they have a lot of attention. And there were teams who told me, okay, that's one thing for your starter, but do you have a starter who feels comfortable with that level of attention being on the backup? And that, I think, plays a part in how you go from second or third round to the fifth round. So to me, a team that had a third round grade on him saying, hey, he looks like a second rounder, to me, that's this preseason game elevated his resume or his portrait in the minds of some teams relative to their pre-draft evaluations.
Yeah, and they're going to keep 4. Unless someone trades for a veteran, and who knows what could happen in the next couple of weeks. Injuries can happen. There could be another team that gets desperate and calls Andrew Berry and says, can I take one of your veterans and make this easier for you? The Browns in all likelihood will keep 4. Now, one of those might be on IR. Who knows? I'm not saying that that's going to be the case. But the idea that Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel, even a week ago, could ever get through waivers to get to a practice squad was absurd. It wouldn't happen. Yeah. So both of those rookies certainly had to be on the roster. Frank, I know you were in Colorado. I find it interesting you mentioned Tim Tebow. And listen, I'm not comparing them talent-wise. I'm not comparing Shedeur and Tim Tebow. But what I am drawing the analogy or the similarity here is the reaction online of the fans. It's almost as if there's a Russian bot army out there. And I say that sarcastically. Any single piece of Shedeur content, good, bad, indifferent, matter of fact, presented without comment, will get like an amount of reaction that I don't know that I have ever seen since Tim Tebow. It is a polarization, a fanboy and a love to hate him that I have never seen since Tim Tebow. And that is, Jory, to your point, through no fault of his own, part of the package. And so far, I think the Browns have navigated it well. But the train has left the station at this point. Like, the hype train has left the station. He started out of necessity. Frank, we saw he can play, and then you can't put the genie back in the bottle right now.
No, and I mean, in some ways, and we kind of discussed this a little bit last week, one of the worst case scenarios for Kevin Stefanski was Shedeur playing this well. And I'm not saying he's setting him up to fail or anything like that. I'm saying now Stefanski can't stop the hype train. Like, everybody's going to be asking about Shedeur even more than they were before. And I think Shedeur's it was very interesting. And you brought up his sideline interview with Aditi. And she kept trying to, and she's great at her job, absolutely professional. She kept trying to get him to say something positive, right? Like, hey, but what about this? What were you proud of? And Shedeur just kept the same way all the time. I didn't do well enough. I got to do better. I'm not where I need to be. I thought that was very professional approach for a guy who does get all this attention. Unprecedented for a 5th round pick. I've never seen that before, ever in my life. A lot of years covering the NFL. I've never seen a 5th rounder get this much attention, but it just rolls off him. Yes, because of his family. He's been in the limelight forever. And he, it's this juxtaposition of him doing the wrist, doing the watch celebration. Nike had that tweet ready to go, didn't they? They put that out there. Like, there's Shedeur showing off. Yeah. And then, but Shedeur, when he talks, he's like, I'm not where I need to be. I'm not ready. So I thought that he's handled everything as well as, honestly, you could possibly handle for the amount of attention he's getting for his spot on the depth chart.
Yeah. And for those who expected, go ahead, Jory. My fault.
I think the biggest thing to me also is that all along it was going to be Shedeur Sanders could not on his own elevate from 4th on the depth chart to 1st on the depth chart. He was going to need some help. But now there are some injuries that are giving him a different level of opportunity, him playing in the preseason game instead of Dylan Gabriel and those snaps and all of that. And so that's, to me, I think where it gets interesting is I don't expect him to be a week 1 starter. I think this is a team that wants a week 1 starter who is as capable as possible as operating Kevin Stefanski's offense at the line of scrimmage. And even if Shedeur was incredible at that as a rookie, Joe Flacco has done this before. He's been doing this for a lot of years, and he has operated Kevin Stefanski's offense specifically. So it's not a knock on everyone else to say that Joe was more prepared to do that. He should be more prepared. The question was, if Shedeur got an opportunity and if he got a break that was outside of his control, which these injuries have been, what would he do with it? And we're starting to see that.
Yeah, and we did see it, and we saw it under the bright lights in front of a national TV audience on Friday, and the results were pretty good. Real quick here, I want to warn people, if you see a story going around about the Browns depth chart, the Week 2 press release ahead of the matinee Saturday in Philadelphia is out. The depth chart hasn't changed. Pump the brakes. It's not a story. Like Kevin Stefanski and I joked about this Friday on tape in our pregame interview. Hey, did you make the depth chart? And he's like, I think that might be a PR thing. Preseason depth charts are a joke. Okay, it was not going to change. He could have thrown 9 touchdowns in 9 possessions. He still was going to be listed number 4 on the depth chart. I promise you.
By some PR intern, like you said, yeah.
Some PR intern. And by the way, when he said that, PR was in the room and Connor was like, hey, like, shots fired. Don't look at me.
What did we do?
Hey, yeah. I set Kevin up. Kevin knocked it down, and PR went, come on now. Anyway, moving on. Coming up on Inside Coverage, the Browns traded out of 2. How did Travis Hunter look in his preseason NFL debut? And we'll roll through the other quarterbacks. Oh, yeah, what about the number 1 overall pick? What about Cam Ward? How did he look? Or J.J. McCarthy? Or Tyler Shuck? Or any of the quarterbacks, including the 2 that are in Indianapolis? That's coming up next. Don't go anywhere on Inside Coverage. Thanks for watching Inside Coverage here on Yahoo. I'm Andrew Siciliano, brand new format here. Same show that you have loved forever. I'm just the new guy trying not to break anything. You know Frank Schwab and you know Jory Epstein. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for being here as well. Let's roll through some of the other preseason action, as now every team has played a preseason game, including the Jacksonville Jaguars and including now the 2nd overall pick, Travis Hunter. Let's pull up the stats here, as he did play on both sides of the ball. Travis Hunter, 10 snaps on offense. Frank, all of them came on the opening drive. He caught 2 passes, both short ones, 9 yards. He had 8 snaps defensively. He didn't get targeted in coverage, but he did have to come up and make a tackle. That didn't go so well. He kind of whiffed on that tackle near the line of scrimmage. I found it interesting this morning what friend of the program, DeMarco Farr, said. He was doing Good Morning Football, former Rams D lineman, does Rams radio, Super Bowl champion with the greatest show on turf. He said, and he went, look, I might be a grumpy old man, but I don't know that you can truly do this for 75 snaps a game. And if you're going to put your number 1 or 2 behind Brian Thomas, wide receiver out there defensively, I'm going to go quick game, or I'm going to go at him as much as I can. I'm going to try to wear him down. I want him to try to make tackles in space, because if I can wear him down, that means maybe fewer snaps and less effectiveness on offense.
I get that notion, but this guy was the best cornerback in the draft. You want to target him that much? I'm sure Travis Hunter's happy for it. Hey, bring it on. And the thing is, yeah, you hear that DeMarco saying that. He's obviously, he knows his stuff. Devontae Adams, I think, last week said there's no way that a guy can do this that long. But then you listen to the Jaguars players, and they're like, this guy never gets tired. And the coaches are like, more. I want him on defense. No, I want him on offense. And I thought this game was pretty indicative of what he can do. I've been watching him here in Colorado a couple seasons and the turnaround of Colorado football. You don't think a guy can do this, but he did it and won a Heisman Trophy. If anybody can, I didn't think a guy could pitch and hit at the same time, but hey, Shohei Ohtani obviously proved that wrong. Like, I just think some guys are different, and Travis Hunter is, and the Jaguars did not trade all what they traded to get the second pick to just have him play receiver. I think he's going to do just fine. I really do. He's not going to be a 100% guy on either side, but he's going to make an impact on both sides. I've said this all along. It's the NFL's great experiment. I think it's the best story in the NFL this year because we've never really seen this before. Roy Green did it for a little bit. Deion obviously did it for a little bit. I was going to make a joke about Deion being proud of Travis Hunter's missed tackle before. I'll lay off that one. But you could just see they're trying to get the ball to Travis Hunter. He moves so well at cornerback. There's no reason. I get that it hasn't been done, and I get that guys who have played in this league say, I don't know about this. But Travis Hunter's just different. Again, I didn't think a guy could be a top 10 starting pitcher and go 50-50 as a hitter, but it happened. I think Travis Hunter, Shohei Ohtani. I think he's just going to get this done, and it's going to be an awesome thing to watch.
To me, the question's not whether he can do it, but whether the Jaguars staff will let him do it. And I still think that there's a question mark there. I still think that if Liam Cohen feels like he needs more from him out of offense and he's the head coach and he's an offensive head coach, then that's where he's going to end up with his time. And to me, it'll be interesting to see week one, how much they give him on both sides of the ball. It does seem like he will play more on offense to defense than me. And it does seem like if they feel like they need him on offense and defense is taking away, that it will be at risk. But I'm curious, Andrew, what you think, because am I just being too narrow-minded and not giving the coaches enough credit for what they can do just because we haven't seen people do it?
No, I don't think you're being narrow-minded. I am skeptical, but guys, I'm here for it. And like Frank, you said, there's the Shohei analogy. Full disclosure, I don't want to see Shohei pitch anymore. I only want to see him hit. Like the fact that he's had his elbow redone already, he's already had the UCL. I cringe every time he goes out there. Like that is pitching. I don't want to see him pitch at all because he is one of the 10 greatest baseball players to ever walk the earth. I don't want to risk him to further injury. When it comes to Travis Hunter, my fear is this. I don't think the Jaguars are going to overuse him. I don't. But I fear his career. At one point, he's going to have to make a decision. Do we stick him on one side of the ball just to prolong his career? I was talking to James Gladstone, the Jaguars GM, a couple of weeks ago, and he comes from a Rams building, which they have all kinds of sports science data. They were ahead of the curve in that regard throughout compared to other franchises. And I said, you guys have to have done the numbers already and know exactly the amount of snaps that you can truly play him. Because in Colorado, he played 115 snaps a game. You can't do that, period. Nobody thinks he can do that. I said, what's the number? And he wouldn't give me the number, but he hinted that it might be variable. So 1 week, it might be more on offense than defense. And the other week, it might swing the other way. And it might be game plan dependent. It might be dependent on how much run he got in practice that week. They have the GPS data that it could change every week. I don't know, but like Frank, you said, it's a fascinating experiment.
It is. And you say, and I get it. Like James saying 115, we can't do that. I think that they're going to get into the season and be like, well, we did 90 last week. Let's do 95. Okay, he played really well on both sides. Let's do 100. This week is a big game against the Texans. Let's do 110. I just think it's going to be more and more. I do. I just think that they had a plan for this when they traded for the second pick. That was really overpaying for any receiver to get him. I think that they were like, we're drafting 2 players in one. And we're going to use, I really, truly believe this, that they're going to, look, and if it doesn't work, if they get to 115 or so, and it's obvious Travis Hunter's struggling on both sides of the ball, then they pull it back. And I think that's the right way to do it. Give him as much as he can handle. Again, think some guys are different, and he's built different. And there's been no indication he can't do this. Again, when you've done this at a Heisman Trophy level in college, you can do it in the pros too. Like, it's something's not done until it's done. I just think Travis Hunter's a unicorn. I've been saying this, and maybe I'm wish casting this because I want to see it so bad because I think it's awesome. But I just think he's a unicorn. I think he's one of one, and I don't know that anybody else is going to be able to do this. I think Travis Hunter actually can. I really do.
Well, Frank, I love that your wish casting is so optimistic. I feel like usually you're not the more optimistic of the two of us, so this is really refreshing. Or maybe it's not refreshing. I should be concerned about my cynicism. But I think for me, first of all, I don't think he's getting 90 snaps week one. And I also think that when I talked to scouts in the draft process, their biggest concern was, okay, let's say he plays more.
Jory, are you in trouble? You're okay?
Well, am I in trouble? Yeah, there's the sirens in the background. Yes.
Okay, just make sure everyone's
one of us who would never be in trouble with the cops is having
the
cops
perils of live. Just want to make sure you're
podcast.
okay.
Yeah,
it's like I live in New York City or something. It's amazingly on the 14th floor, you could still hear the sirens. I wasn't expecting that, but yes, we're in big trouble because Andrew Siciliano is on the show, and we don't know what to do about that. So we are all concerned. But I think that, to me, when I talk to scouts, when I talk to coaches, they say, okay, let's say he plays more offense than defense. Well, there are people who are concerned that you can't just play spot on defense and not have missed assignments. And I'm not saying that's what the missed tackle was in the preseason, but I think you have to be kind of realistic about what this actually looks like and if he's able to have those defensive assignments. Well, then what if you say, well, why don't you just it's easier to put him on offense for a few snaps and not have him spot play on defense? But then don't you think you want him in on snaps that he's going to get the ball, and then you're kind of telegraphing what you're doing? And if not, why is he there on those snaps? So I do think there are real concerns with spot playing him on either side.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. What are the Jaguars doing this week? I'm looking down at the schedule here. Jacksonville's second preseason game is Sunday on the road at New Orleans. They have an interesting quarterback conversation. We'll try to hit that a little bit later. Let's get to Cam Ward. I don't want to say Cam Ward's being disrespected. This is a pet peeve of mine. Everyone says you're disrespecting my player. Why? How? How am I disrespecting him? Well, you're not talking about him enough. I go, there's a difference between lack of respect and lack of attention. Just because you're now 17 minutes into the show doesn't mean, Cam Ward, that I don't respect you. I thought the guy actually looked pretty good Saturday. I am just enchanted, if I could use that word, by his arm. I think it's electric. I love his attitude. I think everything he has said so far since, the pre-draft process began, all the way up to last week where he talked about my dad got up at 4:30 in the morning for a job he hated. I could get up that early for a job that I love. I love the guy. And the one thing that stood out to me from his debut on Saturday was not only the arm, but Frank, he's got a connection already with Calvin Ridley. And this is not just like low-hanging fruit fantasy advice. There is something there. That connection is something to watch.
Yeah, it says to me that Cam Ward's a really smart guy, that he's like, where's Calvin Ridley? I'm throwing him the ball. I think they had 3 connections between the two. And Cam just looked comfortable. It was kind of a hard game for him to get in a rhythm because the Buccaneers held the ball for over 14 minutes in the first quarter. Not ideal for the Titans defense there. But when Cam got on the field, he really looked sharp. He looked comfortable. He looked calm. And I've always, Jory, you wrote this last year about Jaden Daniels, and it totally changed my mind not changed my mind. I thought Jaden Daniels was going to be awesome. And then you went to their camp, and everybody was saying, we can't get this guy out of the building. He's here before everybody else. Yeah. He stays later than everybody else. Same vibes with Cam Ward. I love everything about Cam Ward. The one thing I've really loved about him is he's never been handed anything in his life. Obviously, had to start at Incarnate Word because he had no Division I FBS scholarship offers. Worked his way up, Washington State, Miami, to be the first pick of the draft. I think this guy's going to put in all the work he needs to put in. I'm excited about him. And yes, Andrew, you're right. We're not paying attention to him now, really. Shedeur's sucked up a lot of oxygen in the room. Jaxson Dart playing in New York and all that. But I think it's going to come in October, November, when we're like, wow, Cam Ward is awesome, and he might win Rookie of the Year. I think that's when Cam Ward is going to get his flowers because he's just kind of a lunch pail, go about your work kind of guy we're not going to be talking much about in July and August.
Well, Frank, we've talked about this in the pre-Andrew Siciliano days of inside coverage, this idea that Cam likes that no one's talking about him. I talked to many members of his family in my story before the draft, including Quandre Diggs, the safety who's now back in Tennessee. Quandre is Cam's cousin, and they're like, he doesn't want you to talk about him. He likes to fly under the radar. He likes to play the game, but he doesn't need all of the noise around him. And so I think this is exactly what he wants. And I would say, yes, the work ethic is something you should look forward to. And I think also Brian Callahan's like, look, he played well. They didn't want him playing the entire game, but what he did, he figured out what he needed to do. And then Brian Callahan told reporters afterwards, but Cam hasn't arrived. And so I think that they view this as, this is just the next step. He went, as you mentioned, from Incarnate Word to Washington State to Miami. Now we're at the preseason, then we'll get to the regular season. And this is just yet the latest level of the video game that he's figuring out. But I think that his ability to jump from all of the other levels to the next makes it unsurprising that he was able to transition cleanly to this one.
Let's check the box real quick here on some of the other quarterbacks. J.J. McCarthy, 4 for 7, 30 yards, had one nice downfield ball. He looked the part. Did he have that amazing game like we saw last year before his injury, before the joint practice in Cleveland? No, but you know what? J.J. McCarthy, everything was okay this weekend. Jaxson Dart looked pretty good. 12 of 19, $154 and a touchdown. He said, according to Brian Daboll, that his performance was mid. And that was Daboll saying it. Brian Daboll, for the record, is 50. He turned 50 a couple of months ago. Daboll then added that his, this is again Daboll saying this, that Jaxson Dart's performance was 6'7". Anybody? 6'7"?
No, I
he
felt
said
like
it on
man
camera.
On this one. I can't go lie to you.
Yeah, okay. He said it on camera. And Kyle Brandt this morning on GMFB said he spent an hour this morning looking at TikTok videos trying to figure out what that means. 6'7" is evidently Jory from the Skrilla song Doot Doot. And it's a big thing on TikTok. And Daboll says that his kids taught him 6'7". And then Daboll was just going nuts about how well Jaxson Dart played. Is this like the new hip Brian Daboll because Jaxson Dart has made him young again?
I thought you were telling me he was like 6 to 7 out of 10 on a scale.
I think that's kind of what it means, though. I don't know.
I still don't know. I don't know. We don't know.
Or
you're the young one, Jory. You should know this.
You are on an extreme, and I know clearly I am letting y'all down here. I'll have to do my research and report back for the next show.
I thought Dart looked pretty good, though. All overall, Daboll was excited. I get it, and I kept thinking, can they really keep him off the field week one? Honestly, and I know Russell Wilson's probably going to start week one, but I also am getting Russell Wilson vibes way back, right? Remember when it was yeah, but Matt Flynn's going to start. Russell Wilson looks fine now. And then
we traded for him. We paid him.
Going. And you're like, no, Russell Wilson's going to start. He's our best guy. Why not just start him as a rookie? What's the point in starting Russell Wilson right now? I get he will start week one, but you talk about a hype train that's left the station. I don't. If Jaxson Dart plays like this a couple more times, it is going to be hard to keep him off the field early in the year.
I would say Frank advocates for what's the best story, but he is not looking out for any of these coaches or general managers' best interests on this show today, because I think that if you're Brian Daboll and you're Joe Schoen and you have a win now in 2025 mandate, you want all of the options. If you start with Jaxson Dart, you can't then go to Russell Wilson. You got to start with Russell Wilson, and then if it's not going well, and oh, by the way, as Andrew mentioned, they've got that brutal schedule, so really you just want to make sure that your defense and your run game and all that can kind of do what they need to do. You don't really want the rookie quarterback to have to take on all of these opponents right away when, by the way, you still have Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston on your roster. So I do not think that they should start Jaxson Dart week one. I think that really this is something where you should continue to ease it along. And I think that Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen will continue to ease it along because they know that they're both trying to sell success now and hope for the future if they want to keep their jobs.
Yeah, by the way, speaking of Giants rookies, go check out Abdul Carter's tape from week one. Oh my goodness, do they have something there? Whoo-wee, does he look good.
He had a couple of snaps, a couple of reps against Deion Dawkins, who is A, one of my favorite people in the NFL, but B, also really, really good at left tackle. Really good. Where you're like, all right, I see it. Micah Parsons tweeted about it. Like I told you, this guy's pretty good. But Jory, I'm with you. It's Russell's job because you have to. It's much like in Cleveland. We're trying to win now, and we're trying to develop. Russell's ready, but Jaxson Dart, much like Shedeur, showed that he could do it. And I firmly believe Jameis should be traded. Free Jameis, please. You don't need this third quarterback now. You need a veteran. You need a guy who's great in the locker room. You need a guy who's the greatest mic'd up treasure on the face of God's green earth. Please,
yeah, you want to talk about good storylines.
Yeah, let's get Jameis somewhere because you don't need him. Jaxson Dart can play now. This guy is a luxury, not a necessity. Coming up, Jory's going to be writing about Travion Henderson, who had, if you didn't see, quite a debut of his own on Friday evening. He may still be running. That's coming up next. Don't go anywhere. Inside Coverage. You're watching Inside Coverage on Yahoo. I'm Andrew Siciliano, middle of your screen. Frank Schwab, Jory Epstein on the other side of your screen. People you know and love and trust and respect and read. And coming up in a matter of minutes, you are going to read. You are hereby demanded and remanded and ordered to read Jory's piece on TreVeyon Henderson, the 38th overall pick in the draft, part of a great 1-2 combination that Ohio State ran and rode to a national championship last year with Quinshon Judkins. TreVeyon Henderson, in his debut for the New England Patriots, all he did, Jory, was bust off a 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown, run for 18 yards, 12 yards receiving, so 30 yards from scrimmage. He may not be the biggest, he may not be a workhorse, but wow, he's special.
Special and versatile. I mean, like you said, you've got the carry, you've got the catches, you've got the return touchdown. I mean, when you talk about getting juice into a team en route to what ended up being, a 48-point preseason outing, this is a guy who catches the return, and then he says, okay, no matter that I'm at the goal line, I see where I want to go. I know where I want to break these tackles. It doesn't matter if the first guy's coming at me 20 yards in. I'm going to keep going for 80 more and have multiple. I think there's at least 3 commanders sprawled out by the time he got to the 50. And he just kept going. And just everyone at the Patriots was fired up. I visited them on Sunday of this week, so after their game. And they were all just like, look at this guy. He's explosive. He's versatile. He's special. And he's still learning. And, oh, by the way, on top of all of the statistical elements, he's physical and pass protection, and they're really impressed with that. And so I was talking to their de facto general manager, Elliot Wolf, the VP player personnel, I should say, the official title. And Elliot Wolf was telling me that going into the second round of the draft, he says, you know what, there are about 3 players who we'd be really excited to have. I'm going to sit down and watch all of them and review them going into the draft. And he cues up about 100 runs that TreVeyon Henderson had, specifically against good teams. This was the way that Elliot put it. I didn't ask him what that threshold was. And he gets 15 runs in, and he's like, what am I doing? Like, this is our guy. If he is available, this is our guy. And he said, look, the Patriots had and still have bigger needs than running back. This was not a primarily need pick, but this was the best pick available. We believe in what he's going to do. And what I also say is that I get that Drake May's not a rookie anymore, but I think there is such an overwhelming sentiment in the league that if you look at what a young quarterback needs to succeed, it's not the best pass catchers. It's not only his arm. It's give him a run game to take the pressure off. Give him an offensive line so he has some time. Give him a good defense. And in TreVeyon Henderson, there are going to be so many different outlets that should take a little pressure off Drake May.
You used the term, and I used the term, Jory. No, that's okay, because I just want to say, use the term juice, and I think we should, reference the late, great Therese Paylor in our first live show here by saying, that's all I thought. Every time he touched the ball, I'm like, this guy's got juice. Like, he brings something to this Patriots offense. He is electric, and it's a great combination because Ramondre Stevenson going to be good within the tackles. You give TreVeyon a few touches a game, and that's going to rise and rise as the season goes on. They see his playmaking ability. This Patriots team might be good. It might be good right away. I was very surprised their win total was 8.5 in Vegas, considering they've only won 8 games the last 2 seasons combined. You kind of see it, though. You're like, okay, TreVeyon's there. Drake May looked good. The offensive line has been improved. The defense is going to be completely different with Mike Vrabel and some additions. The Patriots are going to be good, and TreVeyon Henderson is a huge part of that.
I cut you off, and this is preseason football.
Frank is giving out trophies to everyone today.
I'm so excited for the live show for Andrew. Like, I'm fired up, Jory. You can blame me.
We're all excited, but this is my 3rd pre-snap penalty at this point. And in the preseason, it's all about the operation. It's like getting the play out in the huddle, getting to the line of scrimmage, setting the protection, getting your motions straight, all of that. I've been flagged 3 times now, so I have a lot to work on. I would give myself a C as well. But I would also point out, Jory, you mentioned TreVeyon Henderson's pass protection, and we mentioned earlier Amani Marshall, undrafted rookie free agent from App State, from Boone, North Carolina, that had that blitz pickup to allow Shedeur Sanders to throw a touchdown, and how that is so important for any coach. Can I trust a rookie running back in pass protection? My good friend Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network draft analyst, who's also, by the way, an App State grad, played quarterback at App State, said that TreVeyon Henderson in pass protection, his pass pro skill was maybe as good a single individual skill as any player had in the entirety of the 2025 NFL draft. I'll say that again. TreVeyon Henderson in pass pro was as good as any player doing anything in this draft. He is a violent pass protector. And then you throw in his 100-yard kickoff return ability that we saw Friday to open that game, and you're like, all right, they got something.
You don't think Mike Vrabel, who's jumping into fights, is going to love that?
Yeah, I love that you use the word violent, because my piece that's coming out on TreVeyon Henderson kind of turned into a notebook where it's mostly TreVeyon Henderson, but then I have notes on the culture that Mike Vrabel is establishing in New England, as well as Drake May and what he's going to be asked to do in the Josh McDaniels offense and how that will be different. And really, like, the top word that kept coming through in my interviews as it came to what Mike Vrabel wants is violent. He wants us to be violent. He wants us to play with violence. He wants the linebackers to be violent, the running backs to run with violence. And so that is just so Mike Vrabel, the way you're describing it. And I'll also say, when you think about a historical comp, I'm not saying that TreVeyon Henderson is going to come in and be Ezekiel Elliott right away. Obviously, Ezekiel Elliott was a 4th overall pick. But as you guys know, I started covering the NFL and the Cowboys in 2016, Dak and Zeke's rookie year. And that was the big thing about Zeke is, yeah, he was winning rushing titles and he was versatile and all of that. But a huge way that Dak was able to get comfortable in this league was because Zeke was going to pick up those blitzes. And so I really think that we can't understate how much that means for the offensive operation as a whole.
It's going to mean a lot. I got to know Mike Vrabel a little bit. Loved his time in Cleveland last year. He was living at a hotel down the street for 3 days a week. Browns got to love him. Players got to love him. He worked with the tight ends, the backers. He worked a lot with the offensive line, which people didn't know in the moment, as the Browns O-line is a bit of a mess last year. A lot of it had to do with injuries, but new scheme and all that. And the Patriots got a good one. Everyone knows that they have a good one. I'm not as bullish as Frank maybe on this like massive bounce back there in the playoff conversation mode. However, I firmly believe that Mike Vrabel is the right guy for the job, and they're on the right track. Let's get to the Rams if we could, because Matthew Stafford, before the Rams game against the Cowboys Saturday evening down the street here at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, tested out the back. He threw maybe 50, 60 passes, and that was the plan. And if he felt good, he was going to practice today, Monday. He felt good after the game, and from what I understand, he woke up this morning and felt a little bit sore. So Matthew Stafford did not practice today, as had been hoped by the Rams. Sean McVay maintains that there is still not any concern for Week 1 when the Rams open up in the 4:25 Eastern Time, 1:25 local here block against Nick Caley, old friend, now OC, and the Houston Texans with C.J. Stroud. But we're officially kind of getting close to that point where you're like, can you just drop him in there and can he be okay? Hey, Madison, I'm going to talk to the control room now. Do we have the Gary Klein tweet here of this? Look at this, guys. This is from Gary Klein, Rams beat writer for the LA Times. This truck was at Rams practice today. This is called an Immortal truck. And I looked it up here. It is a wellness device designed to enhance recovery and optimize performance by integrating multiple bioenergetic technologies like red and near-infrared light therapy. So Matthew Stafford, instead of practicing, we've seen like the refrigerated trucks at Saints camp. He went into this truck to work on his back. Jory, are you concerned?
Well, first of all, I'm concerned that I don't have access to a truck like that. I feel like my injuries would heal way more quickly if so. Yeah. But I am concerned. I was at Rams camp last week, and when I tell you that everyone to a T, coaches, front office players, was so confident in Matthew Stafford's return and that this was just being extra cautious with an aging veteran in the preseason, that was the consistent line. But I think when you tell people he's going to come back from practice, which you're not saying if you don't think he can, and then there's a setback, I think you start to say, well, how accurate was their confidence? How well placed was it? Or was it maybe a little bit premature? And I think when I look at this, I do expect Matthew Stafford to play the bulk of the season. And I would say more than likely, I think he'll play Week 1. But I don't think he's going to be 100%. I don't think he's going to be comfortable. And then I'll want to know, well, are they just going to do what they do, which I'm sure they don't want us to know, to make him comfortable enough to perform at the level he needs to play? Or is it going to be something that's actually influencing his functionality? And then when I say, well, what if they don't play in Week 1 if he's really not better? If I'm looking at their schedule, I'm kind of going, well, the Texans and Titans are AFC teams. And oh, by the way, the Eagles in week 3, that NFC team, that's the game that I want to make sure I have Matthew Stafford for. So while I do still think he'll be there week 1, and I think that the Rams leadership is confident he will be there week 1, I do think there comes a point that if he continues having setbacks, I'm not saying he won't be ready to take over the offense. And I asked Puka Nacua about this, and he was like, I assure you that Matthew will be ready right away. He knows this offense on just a whole nother level. But I do think when you consider the Rams' long-term season goals, that they'll have to ask themselves whether those first 2 non-conference games make the most sense to play him in.
You know what worries me a little bit, Andrew, here is last year, what were we talking about? Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch. Oh, yeah, Christian's fine. Christian McCaffrey. It's no big deal. He'll be there week 1, even the Friday of week 1. They're like, yeah, Christian McCaffrey will play. Well, didn't work out that way, did it? You're getting kind of the same vibes where you're like, okay, well, Matthew Stafford was supposed to be back by now. And the longer this keeps going on, the more you worry. Now, these are different situations, different players. But Matthew Stafford is 37, and he has had a ton of injuries. Tough dude. I assume he will play week 1, like Jory said. But it's not just, are you on the field? It's how healthy are you? Can you make it through the full season? Is this something that's going to affect him all year? The Rams have every right to believe they're a Super Bowl contender. They're the only team in the playoffs that came close to knocking off the Eagles last year. Obviously, won the NFC West, all this kind of stuff. But they need Matthew Stafford for that. And to your point, Jory, it's like, what is the management here? How do you get him to a point where he is 100% because you want him, especially for week 3, like you said, against the Eagles. You don't want to just that be his first game, all this stuff. It just worries me the longer this goes on. It's not a problem until it's a problem. And at what point do we just say, this is concerning that a 37-year-old quarterback still isn't practicing because of his back?
Yeah, I asked somebody.
When I would add, Frank, that if they're thinking about their ability to stay competitive, I don't think that they're looking at this being like, oh, and we have a developmental quarterback if we can't get Matthew and we have no chance of winning. They have Jimmy Garoppolo at the number 2 spot, who Sean McVay will tell you on the record he believes should be a starting quarterback. And a lot of the front office, I think, would kind of echo that. Most of the time they believe that Jimmy Garoppolo should be a starting quarterback or has that caliber. And so I don't think that you have to be sure you're not going to be able to win with Jimmy Garoppolo. And so if you think he can get you through a couple games, that is really going to be part of this equation.
Yeah, I'm with you. When you're 37, though, and you have a bad back, and I texted somebody with the Rams today, and I said, is this really a thing? And they kind of shrugged their shoulders. He woke up with a sore back. He still isn't 100% right. I'd be stunned if he doesn't play week 1, but anyone who's had a bad back, and me sitting trying to maintain good posture in this chair, I currently have a bad back. I'm also 13 years older than Matthew Stafford. Those things don't go away, and both can be true. The Rams have one of the best backup quarterback situations in the NFL in Jimmy Garoppolo. Also, they may not be a championship team with Jimmy Garoppolo. Both can be true, right? Like, it's a great backup. Like, you should feel comfortable with him. And yes, Sean McVay absolutely has, and I want to use the phrase arrogance, but, there's always this belief that I could take the guy that you didn't win with and I can win with him. Like, Sean believes that, I think, with Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, the Niners couldn't do it. I could win with him. But it's a different offense with Jimmy. He's not going to take the same downfield shots that Matthew does, right? He doesn't have that same kind of swashbuckling mentality to take the risks and to be able to, throw it through a hoop 50 yards downfield, no look while looking at the sideline. He doesn't have that. He's good, though, and he could certainly hold down the fort. I mean, he could win a lot of games. But is Jimmy Garoppolo the guy that you want marching down the field in the snow in Philadelphia in the playoffs? I don't know. To me, Frank, they might feel comfortable with him as the backup, but are they a championship team? To Jory's point, I don't know that they are.
Yeah, it's tough to sell that. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo probably should have won a Super Bowl 6 years ago if the 49ers covered Jet Chip Wasp. But yeah, to your point, I agree. Like, the ceiling gets a lot lower. To go anywhere they want to go, they need Matthew Stafford, and they need him healthy, and they need him 100%. And I don't really know the plan to get him there, and that's the problem with this all.
Yeah, definitely. Coming up, guys, we're not done. We're not there. Speaking of the 49ers, we got a Brandon Ayuk update. When will we see him? Here's a hint. It ain't going to be week 1. That is next on Inside Coverage. All right, down the stretch we come here at Inside Coverage. Frank Schwab, Jory Epstein, I'm Andrew Siciliano. Kyle Shanahan to the podium today said Brandon Ayuk will not be back week 1. He didn't set in stone when the wide receiver could come back from the knee injury he suffered week 7 a year ago against the Chiefs. Jory, he said it could be week 6, it could be week 10, but basically forget about September. As Frank mentioned, Christian McCaffrey last year, he's going to be fine, and then he wasn't. McCaffrey does look fine, but man, they have injuries at wide receiver.
I mean, it just seems like every year the 49ers are so banged up, and the years that they're banged up, it is hard to get over that hump. And I don't think that's necessarily a knock on the coaching staff. Now, you could ask yourself if you think there's a trend with all of these injuries happening. I will say expectation management matters, and saying now that Brandon Ayuk won't be back until week 6 or so, I think that is much better than being like, he's week to week, and then having 5 times when it feels like he might be up and maybe you're game planning for him and all of a sudden you don't have him. But you do have to ask yourself questions because George Kittle's getting older, Brandon Ayuk is hurt, and Deebo Samuel's in Washington now. So there definitely are just weapon after weapon for the 49ers that we're not going to see on the field anymore.
I will say, though, I think they're pretty well set up to sustain this because Pearsall, I think, takes a step. Jennings is pretty good. McCaffrey's back. Kittle's the best tight end in football. If you can get Ayuk back, it's weird to say about a $30 million a year receiver, but he's almost a luxury at this point. If you can get him back late in the season, that'll be good. But the good news is we'll get honest injury info from the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan, right? Like, they would never lie about a key injury, so we'll get something accurate from them.
I mean, Kyle a couple of years ago said, I don't know, are any of us going to be alive next week, right? Wasn't that his line?
Going to be alive.
Like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
yeah. The Shanahans. Gotta love it.
Hopefully probable for being alive next week. All right, let's get to the offensive line injuries because, man, there are a lot of them. The Rashawn Slater thing was just a gut punch last week for the Chargers. They're banged up. They're not going to joint practice with the Rams this week because of their injuries. I kind of saw this one coming. It's not going to be Trey Pipkins at left tackle. Joe Alt, last year's top 10 pick, is going to flip to left tackle. The Eagles seemingly, Jory, have dodged a bullet here on Landon Dickerson. When you get carted off, you think season ending. It seems to be a meniscus, and there is a chance he's back week 1, but there are all kinds of O-line injuries. Throw Tristan Wirfs in. His status is up in the air in Tampa as well for September. It's not like there are free agent O-linemen sitting at home waiting for a call.
No, definitely. I mean, Landon Dickerson, it's crazy to me that he is going to have minor knee surgery on his meniscus and still maybe be there for the opener against the Cowboys. And so I think that you just kind of look at this and remember how insane physically all of these guys are. But I also think that offensive line to me is just one of the toughest positions and toughest groups to replace because I think that guys just don't arrive from the college level ready to compete in the NFL very often. I'm working on a story on that that'll come out later in the month. And I talked to the Eagles offensive line coach, Jeff Stoutland, among others, about that. But I will say that if you are a team that needs to replace your linemen, I would want to be the Philadelphia Eagles with Jeff Stoutland in that room because remember, we were all like, what are they going to do without Jason Kelce last year? And then they win the Super Bowl. And that's not a knock on Jason Kelce. It's just a reminder that this is an O-line factory because their coach is so good that he is able to elevate any player. But it does seem that they dodged a bullet, at least with Landon Dickerson.
I will say this real quick, Andrew, about the Chargers. I'm going to downgrade them when I come out with power rankings in a few weeks. This is a major injury. Rashawn Slater is the highest paid offensive lineman ever for a reason. I'll move the Broncos ahead of them. I think if anybody challenges the Chiefs this year, it's the Broncos, not the Chargers. That's how big this injury is. It just downgrades a whole line. It's a tough one. You can't replace them. Now you can come close to replacing them.
Yeah, it's a big one. It's a gut punch for them organizationally, but and for the players certainly as well. Glad he got paid. I'm not going to say who should hold in and hold out. Like, for example, Cam Hayward in Pittsburgh said today he wants to get paid. That's why he's kind of holding in. Chris Boswell, kind of the same thing there as a kicker. I'm all for guys getting paid because injuries happen, and injuries happen in practice. Hey, this is fun.
Yeah.
Can we do it again soon? Let's do it again
tomorrow.
Yay.
I mean, I'm glad that before we got out of here, Frank was down on some team. That's how you know Rashawn Slater's a serious injury because it's the first team that Frank doesn't think is going to win the Super Bowl this year.
Frank Flowers for everybody. Flowers Frank. Man, that's maybe. I don't know if that's going to stick. Hopefully it doesn't, Frank. For Frank Schwab, for Jory Epstein, my name is Andrew Siciliano. This has been a blast. Back at it tomorrow. Charles Robinson will be here. Make a note of it. Doing this every day, friends. 6:30 Eastern Time, live here on Yahoo. This has been Inside Coverage. So long, everybody.